We, the jury, find George Zimmerman not guilty.
George Zimmerman is now a free man.
You have no further business with the court.
It was the story that captured the nation's attention. On February 26, 2012, George Zimmerman, a 28-year-old neighborhood watch volunteer, calls police to report a suspicious person in a Sanford, Florida gated community. Minutes later, the unarmed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin is shot and killed.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Ritenhouse, not guilty.
The 18-year-old charged with shooting and killing 2 men, wounding another last summer, collapsing in court.
People look at Zimmerman and Ritenhouse. Oh yeah, look what they did. Look what this and that and the other. Those situations were totally different. Okay, number one, with Zimmerman, which I thought that he would get convicted myself. But the bottom line is that there was no witnesses. And he had injuries. And he's saying that had him on the ground banging his head against the concrete. And he used deadly physical force because he thought his life was in danger.
There are reports that his autopsy shows that Trayvon Martin had injuries to his knuckles. Also, according to ABC News, court records show that George Zimmerman had a pair of black eyes, a nose fracture, and 2 cuts to the back of his head after he fatally shot 17-year-old Trayvon Martin.
That's different. Kyle Ritenhouse had a mob running after him. They had a guy that tried to hit him in the head with a skateboard. They had another guy that had a gun. Are there any injuries to Karmelo? Is there a scratch on him? I don't think there was any type of proof that there was a physical altercation at all on him. So from the witness statements that said that he said, touch me, and then when Austin touched him, then he said, punch me and see what happens. This is an incident between 2 young people, one of which really does not understand what the law is and thinks he understands what stand your ground actually means, and he doesn't. He thinks that he's justified in stabbing someone because they put their hands on him. Now, if he would have had a black eye, a busted lip, a broken jaw, then maybe they could say, hey, he was seriously injured. But without that, now, from my point of view, I'm a retired correction officer. People who don't understand the ramifications of using force, especially deadly physical force, should really not engage, okay? Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to wake up the sleeping giant, which is the justice system, and you're going to get caught in it, and they're not going to say, oh, you're too stupid to know what you did was wrong. They're going to hold you fully accountable. What we know from this incident, there's witnesses that saw what happened. Karmelo did not have to say anything, but he said something. So we have his version of his motivation for what he did, his state of mind. See, and that's what they want. They want to know why you did what you did. So in Karmelo's case, it's clear to anybody who has engaged in a use of force incident, we understand what happened. He didn't understand stand your ground, didn't understand how to use force, when to use force, how much force to use. So when they catch him, he says, he put his hands on me. So in his mind, he believes that he is justified in stabbing someone if they put their hands on him, which is not consistent with the law. If you're going to use force, there's 2 different types of force. There's force that is immediate, and then there's force that's anticipated. Okay? If it's immediate, if it's imminent, if something's going to happen and it's immediately happening, and you don't have any time at all to do anything other than defend yourself or take action, that's imminent. That is somewhat justifiable depending on what type of force you use and whether it's in proportion. But if it's anticipated force, then you may have a problem with using force, because what the people that are evaluating it are going to think is that you could have done something else. If the force wasn't immediately needed, or if it wasn't imminent, If it was anticipated, then you could have done something else. Why did you use force, first of all, and why did you use deadly physical force if it wasn't immediate? So when I read the witness statements, and then when I read what Karmelo said, I see an incident that was not immediate. The threat was not immediate. The threat was not life-threatening. Because if someone is threatening your life, you're not telling them, hit me, punch me, touch me. You're not telling them that. If this incident is imminent, you don't have time to fish around in your bag to find your knife. You don't have time for that. If you have time to go through these steps, to tell a person to touch you, and then tell the person to hit you, and then fish around in your bag, then you got time to do something else. You have time to look at somebody and say, hey, call the coach. You got time to pull out your phone instead of your knife and say, hey, I need a police over here. 911, this guy is assaulting me, or he's attempting to assault me. You have time to walk away. So it's not imminent. It's anticipated, but it's not imminent. So this is an ego thing to us. And see, when they ask you what happened, even though they didn't ask Karmelo what happened, he said what he did. And it shows his state of mind. Now, he shouldn't have said anything. Like any lawyer will tell you, don't say anything. Don't give a statement. Don't give up your right to remain silent. But he did, because he's young. He's a kid. He doesn't know. He thinks he's right. So he's saying, he touched me. He put his hands on me. Now, if he would have said, oh, police, I'm so glad you're here. Oh, man, I thought I was going to die, man. This guy grabbed me. I didn't know what was going to happen. Now we know his state of mind. He's afraid. He's fearing for his life. But the statement he's making, it doesn't sound like he's afraid. It doesn't sound like he feared for his life. It sounds like he was going to prove to this guy, touch me and see what happens. I'm going to show you. Because from his point of view, I have the right to do this. Because stand your ground gives me that right. But it doesn't. You can use deadly physical force in Texas. And there's different circumstances that you can use this force. But one thing is clear. You cannot provoke the person that you're using force against. Get that? You cannot provoke the person that you're using force against. So you can't provoke a person to fight you and then later on say, well, I'm defending myself. I was attacked. They're saying you can't do that. Karmelo said to Austin, touch me and see what happens. And then Austin touches him, and then Karmelo says, punch me and see what happens. Right there, he's outside of what the law says is justified when you use force. After that, when you use force, it's like you can't claim self-defense. Now, how does a young person, 17-year-old, get this point of view? A lot of times, it's people talking about this stuff that don't really know what they're talking about. And you have young people that are very encourageable, very open to suggestion, and take things as fact. And they hear somebody that they look up to, that they may respect, say something, and they believe it. So, if you're around anybody, young person, old person, but particularly young people, don't talk recklessly about things like this. If you're going to talk about it, explain to a person that under no circumstances do you want to engage in using force against somebody. And if you have to use deadly physical force, then it has to be a life and death situation. I don't know whether his parents, it could have been his father and his uncle sitting around talking about, if someone touches me, if someone does this to me, I'm going to stand my ground. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to stab them or shoot them or whatever, and bye. Don't do that. Don't tell these people that, especially these young people. Don't let them believe that. And so I'm saying, watch your kids. Watch who's talking to your kids. And when you talk about things like this, because this stuff is in the news all the time, and when you start talking about this stuff, make sure that you're careful about what you say, because your kids are listening. Thank you once again for stopping by and checking me out. And until next time, peace and stay safe.